Hello everyone, welcome to Lit Studio by Karishma. So today we are going to talk about Jean Baudrillard. This is going to be the first person that we are going to discuss in the classes of postmodernism. We've already talked about postmodernism in the introductory class of it. So today we are going to discuss about Jean Baudrillard. He is actually a French sociologist. He analyzed media and contemporary culture and technological communications. Many of his books are influenced through this analysis of media and contemporary culture. You would soon realize that when we will be discussing about his books. And he is often referred to as the high priest of postmodernism. So remember this detail about him. Jean Baudrillard is referred to as the high priest of postmodernism. So now let's look at his books. The first work would be Simulacra and Simulation. These two are also the concepts given by him. We will be discussing what they mean in a short time. But now remember the title of the book, Simulacra and Simulation. The second book that he has written is System of Objects. The third book would be Gulf War Did Not Happen. This book also will be discussing in relation to one of the key concepts that he has given. And the fourth book would be The Mirror of Production. So kindly note all these books down. Simulacra and Simulation, System of Objects, Gulf War Did Not Take Place, Mirror of Production. Now, let's look at the concept of simulacra. Simulacra means copies of original. Example, any photocopy. For example, I have my SSC certificate and I get the photocopy of it. Okay, the photocopy would be the copy, and the original certificate issued by the government or the body of my SSC would be the original of it. So that is simulacra, copies of original. So the photocopy is the simulacra. Simulation is a process of replacing the original with the copy. For example, if you ask me for my 10th class certificate, I would not give you the original of it. I'll just give you the Xerox or the photocopy of it. So that is what simulation. I'm trying to replace my original certificate with the copy of it. Then it is simulation. So the process of replacing the original with the copy is called simulation. So remember this detail. Simulacra is the copy and simulation is the process of trying to replace the original with the duplicate is called simulation. Now, according to Baudrillard, there are certain stages of representation. They are reality. The first stage is called reality. For example, if you bought a handbag, the bag would be the reality. The first stage of representation is the bag that you hold in your arms is the first stage of representation. That is called reality according to Baudrillard. And the second stage is reality is represented by an image. If I want to show my friend who is living afar the bag that I bought, I would send her an image of the bag. So in this second stage, reality is represented by the image. So the bag I bought, I cannot go there and show it to her. So I will send her an image of the bag. So here the reality of the bag is represented by the image that I sent it to her. Right? So this is the second stage of representation. So she can see the picture of the bag and think that okay, this is the bag that she bought. So here the reality is represented by the image. The handbag I bought is represented by the image of the handbag that I sent to her. And the third stage is distinction between reality and the representation of reality gets blurred. So in the third stage, what happens is, for example, we will be discussing about the bags. We are at a group of friends. We've gathered and we are discussing about our bags. We will not be showing the bags. We will not be showing the images of the bag. We'll just think, yeah, I bought the Prada, or yeah, my Gucci is at my home. So you'll not even be saying the bag, the black one, or the image I sent you will not even be saying that. The brand name would be replacing the bag. So here the distinction between the reality and the copy is blurred. because there is no image and there is no real object that is in plain sight. So that is the third stage. The first stage is reality, the second stage is reality is represented by an image, and in the third stage the distinction between reality and the representation of the reality gets blurred. For example, we can talk about the Xerox. When we say, can you get a Xerox of it? Xerox is actually the brand name of the machine, but in reality it is called photocopy. So we are replacing the term photocopy with Xerox. We are identifying it as Xerox, but it is just a brand name. It is not the name of the photocopy. It's the brand name. So that is how there is, we cannot identify. If someone says, can you Xerox it, we'll just imagine it to be a photocopy. So that is how there is blurring of the reality and representation of the reality. Now let's look at hyper reality. This is one of the key concepts given by Jean Baudrillard. So according to hyper reality, it means the imitation of reality, but it becomes more real than the original reality. So it is similar to the concept that we've discussed with the Xerox. Xerox is more common. We identify Xerox more than when someone says photocopy. Although it just simply represents the brand name of it, it becomes more real. Xerox becomes more real to a photocopy than photocopy ever is. So imitation of reality becomes more real than the original reality. According to Baudrillard, this is one of the postmodernist feature of the 21st century. So in hyper reality, the world today is dominated by hyper reality. That is what Baudrillard says. Baudrillard says the world today is dominated by hyper reality. We can even observe this tendency of domination by the hyper reality even in many of the mobile games. For example, there are many shows like Cooking Fever or something, wherein you cook for the people that come in the app. They order certain food and you have to cook for them. So there is hyper reality. You are preparing the dishes, you are serving them. Everything is in a hyper realistic world. So even when you do not serve the food according to their wishes, or if you became a little late, they will even show it on their faces. So that's how close they came to reality. So this is one of the tendency of hyper reality. We can see that even in the games today. So that is what Baudrillard says. He says that the world today is dominated by hyper reality. That is one of the key features of postmodernism. Now let's talk about simulacrum. So we've talked about simulacra and simulation. So if you ask what a simulacrum is, it is a fake or virtual reality, also known as hyper reality. The thing that we've discussed about hyper reality, it is the same thing as simulacrum. Fake or virtual reality, it is, even though it is fake, it acts as if it is virtual. It acts more real than the realistic version. It is not a mere imitation or duplicate of the original, rather it is a substitution or takes the place of original with the fake images. For example, the images that we see today, in fact there is a trend wherein everyone tried using AI to generate their images as if they are Krishna and Radha, as if they are Rama and Sita. There was this recent trend today. Although they are not realistic images, they try to replace the realistic images with their own fake images. So they try to substitute the reality through the fake or copy versions. So this is called simulacrum, when you try to replace the reality. The fake or the virtual reality is also known as hyper reality. It is also called a simulacrum. It is not just mere imitation, but it is substitution of the reality with the imitation or copy. That is called simulacrum. Baudrillard says that it is all right to produce a copy of the original. Like simulacra is all right, but when you start replacing the original with the copy, something that is something which is not clear is dangerous. So he says that it's all right to copy certain thing, but it is not all right to to replace the original with the copy. The original is always an original. You cannot substitute the copy for the original. That is what Baudrillard says. And he gives the example of Disneyland. Many of the people believe that Disneyland is this land that really exists, wherein the princesses and kings and many of the stories of Disneyland actually exist. It is actually another land. It is actually kind of like a parallel universe, and it really exists. But it is not true. It is just an artifact. It is man-made. Disneyland is man-made. There are not really any princesses. There are people who pretend to be princesses. There are people who pretend to be Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse there, but there are not really princesses, princes. There are not really kings, Mickey Mouse. All these things do not really exist in Disneyland. In fact, Disneyland as a specific land does not really exist. It is just a place wherein people go to enjoy. It is just an experience. In this relation, what Baudrillard says is that Disneyland is an artifact that so obviously announces its fictiveness, which means it is so obviously fictitious. It is fictional and it is very obvious. The fact that it is fictional is very obvious. That is what Baudrillard says, and that it would seem to imply some counterbalancing reality. Baudrillard says Disneyland is an artifact that so obviously announces its fictiveness that it would seem to imply some counterbalancing reality. So when this is very obviously implying to the fictitious nature of it, there is some kind of counterbalancing reality that exists with this kind of obvious nature of the fictiveness. That is what Baudrillard says. So you should remember this. You should remember what Baudrillard said in relation to Disneyland and why Disneyland is a concept of hyper-reality or simulacrum. Baudrillard talks about the Gulf War in this context. We've talked about his book called the Gulf War did not take place. So this is what he talked about in that particular book. He says that the Gulf War did not take place, and he says we only know the Gulf War that it is that what is reported by the news and media. We only know about that, but in reality, Gulf War did not take place. Iraq War took place. So, by the portrayal of the Gulf War by the media, which never really took place, it became reality. So, everyone who consumed the content produced by the media believed that the Gulf War is real. But what reality is that Iraq War took place. But now, Gulf War actually replaced the Iraq War. So, the originality is replaced by the copy, which is called the process of simulation. So, what actually took place in reality is the Iraq War, but not many people are aware of it. So, that is the concept of simulation. But the copy of Gulf War substituted the original, that is the Iraq War. So, that is what he talked about in relation to the idea of simulacra and simulation. He says all of this in relation to simulation. The process of the Gulf War actually substituting the Iraq War, which is the reality, is the process of simulation given by Jean Baudrillard. So these are the ideas given by Jean Baudrillard in relation to the theory of postmodernism. Also, please make sure you watch the video of introduction to the theory of postmodernism as well, so that you can understand this particular lecture and the ideas given by him in relation to the theory of postmodernism. And the class notes of this particular class would be available in my Telegram channel, and the link would be provided in the description box below. So make sure you check that out. It would be very beneficial for you in your preparation as well. You can read straight from it, or you can make your own notes out of it. And yeah, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you.